Oh, welcome back. Well, here I am with another video full of amazing vintage goalie gear. This week, I'm pretty excited because I have a couple of pieces in this kit that I have not worn before and kind of excited to talk about those. So we'll get started right now. Well, maybe this week we'll start from the bottom up. I went with the Lang skates. This is like funny to me because in the modern day goalie equipment world, everything is the talk of a one-piece skate. Well, this is like a 5-piece skate. You have your blade. There's no toque. The blade mounts directly to the cowling. So you have blade, cowling, and then you have a 2-piece boot. Because there's a hinged ankle piece, and then you have your insert liner, that boot liner that your foot actually goes into. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-piece skate. So I think that's kind of funny, but it shows a big evolution in the gear. These skates were a gift to me from my buddy Stu, and I really appreciate that. They're in amazing condition. They fit me really well. They do have the original woven laces to them, which I gotta say, that's one thing I have to get used to, is you kind of actually have to cinch these things down, because over the course of a game and the movement of your foot, it feels like they loosen up. And maybe that's because of the woven lace material. I'm not really sure. The skate blades are in fantastic, nice and beautiful shiny shape. Added my tape for where my straps run through, so it won't cut my straps. And yes, I use vintage Cooper skate guards on all my skates. Previously wore these on the outdoor rink, and I weighed them at that time, 3.5 pounds each. Not really going to talk a whole lot about the pads this week. I've wore these several times since we started back up and I started doing videos in this format. These are a mid-80s Cooper GP95L. Just throwing a couple details on how you kind of date some of the gear when you collect like this. So I have a bunch of Cooper catalogs and I can compare and look up different design changes. On this set of pads, you see you got the black sidewall panel and the black calf wrap, as well as there is some Velcro inside of here, because in 84-85 Cooper changed to this design for the 95s, and that was the year they also introduced a knee pad very similar to the GP KP knees. It came with the pad and it had a Velcro tab that locks in on there. It was kind of like their first experiment with a knee cradle. Just like on a lot of my other pads, I do use my extensions on the straps, only on the top straps for this pad. Just like to get a couple of more inches on that strap so it's not too tight. I believe these pads weigh in at about 6.5 pounds each. So that we're at now about 10 pounds per leg stepping out onto the ice. Now we'll move up to the gloves. GM21 ST and GM12 blocker. I'll start by saying I just received this glove from Elia Sharko, and I'm pretty happy with it. And honestly, I felt like maybe I should stop buying GM21s in leather. And then I put all my GM21s together and realized I only have one other GM21 leather with the side trap, the ST model. And that one is such a new condition glove that it's not even broken in, and I haven't even worn it because you can't really even close that glove. So I was really stoked to see that and knew that I needed to get this one out on the ice as soon as possible. This was the game for it. Another fine detail when aging and dating gear, when to do the research on the GM21, 1982, I believe, is the last year for this version of the 21 ST in leather. Some of the key indicators are the patch here on the cuff and the fact that the GM21 stamp is on the palm instead of on the heel pad. All the way through 79, they didn't offer the side trap model. So we know this glove ranges from 1980 to 1982 for when it was built. This is a later model blocker, probably mid-80s. The blockers get a little bit trickier to age and research because not a lot of changes happened in the 80s. Now I'll go right to the combo helmet and cage. And that's because the next few pieces here are kind of the first timers for me. So while I've worn SK600 HM30 combos before, I have not wore this yellow one. In fact, I assembled this the day of the game. I have another one of these that's an older model, and it's not what I would consider wearable because it has a small crack at the screw hole here. So I didn't want to risk that. It is slightly earlier. I believe that one's a 1979 model. And this one is technically a 1981 model. I'll try to show a picture of the mold stamp up here. That being said, it's the same shell as the 1979, and that was a change that they made to the mold of the plastic shell. This one here and my other one are slide adjustment style sizing. Prior to the later 79 model, it was fixed hole adjustment. There were 3 individual holes at each screw for changing the size. You couldn't just loosen it and adjust and snug. The earlier models also have an outline graphic instead of a solid graphic there. I wanted to wear an 80s helmet combo, and so that's why I put this one together, and this has original foam in it. I also have Cooper GTP dangler. I also used a Kineski reproduction HM30 chin pad, which I had done in black and yellow. Figured it fit the theme, so might as well put it on there. So now we're going to talk about the chest protector, and here's something you don't see every day. This is a Cooper SABP Deflector chest protector. Originally, the Deflector model was introduced in the 84-85 catalog, but it looked slightly different than this. On the original version, extra padded strips that covered these armadillo-style pad overlaps. Then in 86, they modified it to look like this. Very slight modification, and they got rid of those extra padded strips. In 87, they discontinued this version and came out with what they called the SABP 2, the Deflector 2 model. If anybody watching this has a good condition, non-youth sized, first version or SABP 2, Deflector 2, I might be an interested buyer if you want to get a hold of me. There's really not much to this, but I did notice there's like a real thin plastic piece inside of the center armadillo flap. Not a whole lot. There's maybe 1/2 inch foam behind it. This is maybe 1/2 inch foam here and a little bit thicker down here, 3/4, maybe 1 inch down on the bottom. Little bit of a neck protector built in. The whole thing is covered in this nylite spandex type material, and there's basically no back at all, just the strapping. They did upgrade to a plastic quick connect. The one modification I did make to this one is that little clip right there. I switched that to plastic because that's what it looked like. It's rusty and falling apart, and I'll bet if I squeezed it hard enough, it would just snap in half. So I took a plastic mask snap clip with the pass-through, used my Dremel tool, got rid of the little rim of the snap hole, and rounded off the teeth inside the slots so that I could pass the strap through and use this instead. Huge thanks to my friend Herb up in Quebec for middlemaning this for me. He found an ad and shared it with me, and I was able to make a deal with the seller, and Herb was local, so he went and picked this thing up for me and handled all that and then boxed it up and shipped it to me. So thank you so much, Herb. I really appreciate it. Well, that brings us to the part of the video where I talk about the stick I used. This is a really cool Canadian 960. It was in somewhat rough shape when I got it, but not too bad. I've talked before how I repair sticks, old wood sticks. It looked to me, and I'm sorry I can't show you because the blade's already covered, but it looked to me like someone had already done a repair on this blade, similar to the way I've done them. Overall structure of the stick was solid. The paddle on this stick, the Canadian logo graphic is printed on the wood, and then there's a strip of fiberglass over flat here and here. It doesn't overlap the rounded edges, the sides. But it was loose. I could peel it up. Like, I didn't have to try it. It was that loose. And so before going out for the game, while I was getting other things ready, I re-adhered that and clamped it down for a couple of hours. The labels were loose. They were there, but they were flapping and loose and a little bit torn up. And so I finished peeling those loose, and I used contact cement and clamped those as well to let them dry nice. Then taped her all up and took it out on the ice. I do love the sound. I say this every time. I love the sound that a puck makes off of an old wood stick. It's amazing. Well, there we have it. That was the gear for this Sunday evening game in my old timers group. And just a few things to say about this game. And I'm going to start with this little video montage.
Clearly, I made a mistake.
I made a mistake. I made a mistake.
I made a mistake.
So yeah, I made a mistake. I broke one of my primary rules, and it caused me a problem. Not just physically, but mentally for this game. And I hate to say it because I really love the piece of gear, but I should not have wore the Lang skates. I've only actually wore those skates one other time, and that was just like a month ago on the outdoor rink. I'll put a link to that video up here and down in the description as well. So the problem comes from, I had them sharpened before I used them. They were too sharp for me, probably because of the outdoor ice. And so I had to kind of dull them off a little bit, very specifically the inside edges. They still felt really good to me on that outdoor rink though, after doing that. And I guess I assumed that would translate to the rink indoor. It didn't seem to be that way. They felt really awkward and bad to me. I did take a re-edge tool out to the bench, just in case, because I kind of had started thinking about that before the game started. I was completely uncomfortable in these skates. Not only were my edges not the way I like them, but there's the concept of being comfortable on a skate that has a taller profile than what you normally wear. And so the mistake I made is I do my best to not experiment with gear that I don't have a comfort level with already when it comes to real games. If it's a pickup game, drop-in, shinny, whatever, outdoor ice, that kind of thing, when there's nothing on the line and it's just a bunch of people strictly playing for fun, there's no stat sheet, there's no record at the end of the season, those kind of games are great for that. But when you have other people counting on you to be playing your best, that's a mistake you shouldn't make. And I broke that rule of my own, and I apologize to my team for that. The first period, I felt really awkward and couldn't move. My left inside edge was dulled out. I couldn't move around laterally the way I usually do. I had no comfort level there. In between that periods, I went to the bench and ran the edger over it, but you get no time to test that out, play with it, see if you need to hit it again or whatever. So I went real gentle with it. Got a little bit of an edge to it, but it was almost too sharp of an edge to some degree. So I felt even more uncomfortable in a different way because of that in the second period and beyond. And all of that just added up in my head, and I became my worst enemy in this game. I know I don't move around great, but I do feel like this hampered that. So I broke that rule. I won't be doing that again. I'll stick with these for fun games on occasion when the gear requires it, which ultimately is why I wore them, because I really felt like this kit needed a pair of skates like that. Game video is coming up next. Hope you stick around and enjoy it. If you like the video, feel free to leave comments, talk about the gear, and if you know anybody that might get a kick out of seeing this, share the link with them. And if you could, as I always ask, if you'd hit that subscribe button and that bell notification, you'll get alerted when I post new videos, and I'd appreciate you doing that. Thanks. Two to one after one.
7-3 loss I played, right?